don't know about you, but I'm just fed up. This week, a line was crossed by the rabid enemies of Christianity. So if you either saw or heard about the opening ceremonies at the Paris Olympics, the chances are that you were scandalized and shocked. That event caused me, along with many others, to feel that it was time to speak up. The Olympic opening ceremonies in Paris featured a tableau of transgender drag queens mocking Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting of Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper. The tableau, with its overt sexuality, was not only a slap in the face of da Vinci's painting, but also of Jesus and Christianity in general. To top it off, as a part of the opening ceremonies, the figure of the pagan god Bacchus or Dionysius was displayed on a table with the food that was laid out as part of the tableau. The whole spectacle was a disgusting, in-your-face mockery of what so many of us hold dear. And it wasn't just Christians who were offended. Many who would not claim Christian faith at all were amazed that in the name of, quote, tolerance, the organizers of the event would be so intolerant and disrespectful towards a huge percentage of the world's population. But this was no isolated event. Just think back several months ago to Easter 2024, when the President of the United States, Joe Biden, proudly proclaimed the Transgender Day of Visibility. The same day, Easter Sunday, has been the highest, holiest holiday of Christianity. But to put it on Christianity's holiest day is absolutely mind-blowing. This is another example of an in-your-face mockery of God and of all who love Him. Think back only a few years ago, 5, 10 years ago, and such a proclamation would never have been dreamed of, much less been a central component of the Olympics. Let's think a little further about what's become an all-out war on Christian faith and Christians. I will share a few other recent examples of this assault just in the United States, not talking about the world in general, which is much worse in some places. A public school teacher in New Jersey was reprimanded for giving a Bible to a student and then suspended from teaching. The city of Atlanta, Georgia, fired a fire chief for publishing his own book defending Christian morality. Wait, I thought freedom of speech was a fundamental right of U.S. citizens. Then there was the football coach in the state of Washington who was put on a leave of absence for the horrendous crime of leading in prayer at the end of a football game. What about the U.S. Marine who was brought before a court-martial for posting a Bible verse above her desk in a public space? Christian social agencies that help couples adopt children, feed the homeless, and provide counseling services are regularly being picketed, attacked, vandalized, and falsely defamed as organizations that promote hate. What about the last couple of Super Bowl halftime shows? You'd have to be willfully blind not to see the overt Satanism and anti-Christian themes that were promoted and celebrated by the organizers of the event as wonderfully creative, edgy, and avant-garde, when in reality they were, in the opinion of many, if not most viewers, perverted and offensive to their values. We can't forget the incident a couple of years ago in which Covington Catholic high school students were accused of publicly disrespecting a Native American man at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. For weeks, the press and media relentlessly hounded, doxed, and persecuted these teenagers. But then, videos taken by private individuals at the scene revealed that the initial reports by the major media deliberately slanted the story by omitting certain important events of what actually happened. The students did not harass or mock the Native American man. Instead, he approached them and was beating the drum in their faces as they waited for transportation to pick them up. Weeks later, after much damage had been done, the actual facts of the incident leaked out, causing massive outrage. The hateful and deceptive media people who covered the story received huge blowback when the public realized that the students, who had done nothing wrong except attend a Catholic high school, were receiving death threats and that the school was forced to close temporarily to protect the safety of the student body. Speaking of schools, on secular college and university campuses across the United States, Christian groups have sometimes been denied official recognition as student clubs. Why? Because they're Christian. This when atheist clubs and transgender groups are allowed free access and sometimes even given special privileges to campus funds and facilities. Some Christian institutions of higher education like King's College in New York and Gordon College in Massachusetts have had to endure efforts by anti-Christian groups to remove their academic accreditation, which means nobody's going to want to go to school there. You can't get an accredited degree. And this is part of a growing campaign nationwide whose goal seems to be to put Christian education out of business entirely by arguing that Christian schools should be considered harmful, offensive, and therefore be denied official accreditation. Celebrated atheist Richard Dawkins even characterized the practice of homeschooling by Christians as child abuse. So clearly a line has been crossed. When the attacks on Christianity and Christians were more subtle 20 or 30 years ago, the enemies of Christianity could claim plausible deniability, and that means that they could say that they didn't really mean any harm, but were just expressing a different point of view. Oops, sorry, I guess some of our more radical spokespeople got carried away. No harm, no foul. But today, when a spokesperson for the Olympic Committee that organized the opening ceremonies said that they really didn't mean to offend anyone's feelings, nobody believed her. It was so in the open, so in your face, and it required such a huge amount of forethought and planning that it's impossible to believe that they didn't mean to offend anybody. I'm sorry, that just doesn't fly. Especially when people criticize the groups and causes that they support or inadvertently use a careless word, those people are hounded and called racist, hateful, and bigoted. These anti-Christian bigots are used to being able to dish it out without consequence, but they certainly cannot take it even in the mildest or most innocent of slights. All right, so what should we do? I think it's time to stand up. I think it's time to say no more. It's time to do what they have been doing to Christians for years, which is boycott organizations and products, call people out, and sue. I am not advocating violence of any kind, but that doesn't mean that we cannot take legitimate action. It's time to sue them when they defame and slander. It's time to publicly call out people who make outrageous statements and force them to apologize. It's time to defund them. It's time to label them for what they clearly are, hateful bigots and bullies. It's time to boycott their products and their events and their networks. Bottom line, it's time for us to be brave and bold and stand up for our rights and values. It's about time, Christians. Because if we don't stand up now, it will be too late. It's almost too late now. So is there any hope? Well, I think so. For instance, a mere 24 hours after this mockery of Christianity at the Olympics, the 18th district of Paris experienced a complete power outage. Complete except for one building that somehow, maybe miraculously, retained its power. The Sacré-Cœur Basilica. Sacré-Cœur in French is Sacred Heart. Just that one beautiful church building had power in the whole district. Some are calling it a miracle. I think God's had enough. I think his patience has run out, and I think we are seeing people begin to rise up as well. I think we're beginning to see the darkness dissipate all around us. What we may be witnessing in this Olympic opening ceremony debacle is simply Satan's rage at seeing his plans to exterminate Christianity and eradicate Christians begin to fail. Let's get to work. This is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries. Thanks for listening.